Hey CIV, welcome to another episode. We're so glad you decided to tune in. If you haven't yet, go check out our other episodes. This is episode 9 of Faith Journeys, and we're so glad you're tuning in today. Today on the pod, we have Leidamae with us. She's going to be sharing her story, so we're going to just jump right into it. So, tell us, how did you get here on this couch? And who are you, and where do you serve? Where?
Sure, yes. Leidamae. I am the principal at Fraser Valley Adventist Academy.
Nice.
And I got here, this is my 3rd year there. I got a text, and that's how I'm here.
Got a text, pretty last minute, but you got a text. That's all that matters.
Thanks for coming in. Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we've been diving into faith journeys in this season of our podcast, our first season of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we were thinking and about who we could interview in our community. And there were a lot of names that came to mind. But so gratefully and wistfully, you were the yes that came through. So we would love to just dive into your faith story. So maybe we can go all the way back to maybe at the beginning of your faith journey, if you grew up SDA, how that was like, and we could just dive into that.
Sure, yeah. I was born SDA, or I guess, I don't know, into the faith, I guess. Better to say it that way.
Yeah.
And my dad, I don't know, for the longest he was the youth leader at the church, and so we had the youth over all the time. I remember my dad like explaining how he would never tell my mom who was coming over, so my mom always just had to have food ready.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it was 3 people and sometimes it was 20. So I can't imagine what that might have been like for my mom. But yeah, so because my dad was the youth leader, Sabbath was like full on. We had the youth over for lunch, and then after lunch we trucked them back to church for AY, and then we had to do stuff with them in the evening. So I probably watched all kinds of movies I really shouldn't have watched at like 8 years old. That like scarred me for life, but it was a really good time. It was good times. But because he was the youth leader and people looked to him for like spiritual guidance, I was like, I don't know, I felt like there's like this shadow or like this pressure to be just so.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't feel like it most of the time, you know? But yeah, anyway, I think that through that all, like being able to listen to different speakers and like all of those opportunities, I remember one speaker introducing the whole idea of prayer journaling. And so like I started when I was like 13.
Wow.
And I like needed to write really messy just in case anyone could.
So they don't read it?
You're so real for
Right?
that. You're so real. That's so real.
Because I like, those aren't for them. They're my prayers.
Yeah.
But that's something that has kept me like I still prayer journal today.
Wow. That's really good.
Yeah, decades. It's been decades since I've been prayer journaling.
Wow. It's funny you say that because I used to do that a lot as a kid. I don't as much as I used to. I think I'm more like diary, but like it's a combination of both. At the same time, I'm like writing about my life. Okay, wait, don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing
Okay,
at
it's
you.
not like I'm like dear diary.
I'm not laughing at you.
Okay, I'm just saying like it's September.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
but also it keeps me like accountable too in myself and like the journey that I've gone through. I did that a lot as a kid, and it really helped me because I like obviously our prayer lives are everyone's so different. But for me, I found myself I have to like physically be writing.
Yeah, because otherwise I fell asleep. So I was like, okay, how do I keep praying? Because I know I need to pray without falling asleep. Because it was always like, okay, God, I'm sleeping now.
Yeah.
But you know what I want.
Yeah.
And then like I was out.
Yeah. No, it's we have like even you saying that there's like so many different ways that we pray. I think sometimes we think we have to be on our knees, eyes closed, you know, like this.
Yeah.
But there are many ways, even just taking a walk in nature, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done those too. Like, forcibly, I had to leave the room, you know? I had to get out, and I had to be like, okay, God.
Yeah. I think me and Alex, for sure, like, from our faith journeys, we can definitely understand coming from like a church background and growing up the church, where you kind of feel that pressure of like you have to act a certain way, you have to be a certain way, or like, because my parents are taking me to church, I'm gonna go to church, and because I go to church on Saturday, like, this is the faith that I believe. But like, in all of these stories that we've been hearing so far, we've kind of talked about how we have made our faith our own. So when do you think that turn happened for you? I know you talk about prayer journaling and how that's such a big part, but what else do you think happened that kind of changed the trajectory of your faith at that time?
Yeah. Wow. I think that, I think prayer journaling kept me connected because like, looking back, it was easy for me to see that, like, I think, at least, like, the devil didn't want me to do what I'm doing now.
Right.
And so he was, like, on a warpath trying to, like, get me off what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, it was just one of the ways that God needed to, like, connect me there. And so I have listened to the past podcasts, and you need to do that, because I, like, you know, if I want to use the phrase, live your best life.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
So absolutely was doing that. And yet at the same time, there was always a pull. Like, I needed to be at Friday night Vespers where I could just praise. Right? Because it's not the same. Like, if church, I was at church for song service. That's why I was at church.
Wow.
Like, I wasn't at church for the sermon. I wasn't at church for anything else but, like, the song service, and then to see my friends.
Relatable.
Yeah. That was me as a teenager too, though, I will say, though. I connected, like, through the song, and at one point it took me time to actually sit down and listen to the sermons, I would say. But it was music that
that, like, kept me connected. That, and then, like, because I knew that I needed it, I was glad that I had gotten into the habit of prayer journaling. But I think that I needed to make it mine in college. Like, it's not an easy time.
Yeah.
And so what's funny is, like, when I talk to my students and, like, you know, my high school kids or my middle school kids are like, life is over. And I'm like, oh, it's going to get so much harder. But, like, you're not going to be alone. You're never alone. And so I think through college, I remember that, like, I came home one summer, and, like, I was like, you know what? It's Friday night. Let's get together with the friends and let's, like, worship. Why not? And, like, we did.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my friends at home knew my dad too. Like, I mean, my family, right? Like, everybody knew us as whatever, very spiritual. And so I don't think it was ever a surprise that, you know, sure, let's go to Leida's house and, you know, have worship on Friday night.
Yeah.
But for me to actually lead it it, like, came out of that.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, by leading, I mean, like, ooh, let's play this song, and ooh, I like this song too. And this is what I felt today, and this is how I saw God, you know? And so we could have conversations like that. But I think that my journey needed to, I don't know, like, the idea of growth coming from difficulty. I had to learn, like, awful things happened to me when I was a child. And I had to learn early how to forgive, because the people who had done whatever they had done, they did it because they were being influenced by other things, right? Like they were on their own journey. And so I had to come to terms with like forgiving people early. And so from that, like I had to wrestle with all kinds of, I don't know, like self-esteem issues and all of that. And then, like I said, I think the devil has been trying to like rock me from this path from when I was, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years old, you know?
That's crazy.
And then when I'm thankful for the journey that I had in college, because then when I was in college, like I thought, oh, I'm going to meet somebody or whatever. And anyway, so I ended up in the Bahamas after I graduated. And I was there for 7 years. I actually got married out there.
Oh, wow.
And my ex-husband, who I'm really good friends with now, had things that he had to fix in his life too. And because like in my head, I was like, no, it's okay. Like God can do it and God's good. I just need to pray. And like, that is not real.
Wow.
I mean, it is real because God will do it, but not on my time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's not my job to fix people.
Yeah.
That's God's job to fix people.
That's good, yeah.
But through that, I had to, again, like pull those lessons from my childhood about forgiveness into my first marriage.
Wow.
And something that I like tell people, and I know that it's easy for me to, I mean, I can say it because I've done it, but it's not easy to do.
Right.
If the person that is causing me all this pain is my neighbor in heaven and I don't want to be there, then that's a problem.
Wow.
Like, I need to be okay with everybody being my neighbor in heaven.
Wow.
And if I'm not, then that's on me.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's good.
So, like, I would be ecstatic if my ex-husband was my neighbor in heaven.
Wow.
That's
Like,
awesome.
I'm totally okay with that.
That's crazy.
How do you find the strength to do that? Like, I mean, it's hard. Like, I mean, I haven't had to, like, do forgiveness to an extreme level, but, like, even just, like, my brother takes my food that I left in the fridge. Like, I love him, but sometimes it's hard to forgive.
Yeah.
Like, bro, like, are you serious?
Yeah.
It's really hard. How do you find the strength
Absolutely.
to that extent of...
So, the way that I look at it, it, again, plays a part with the whole faith thing, right? Like, there is nothing that somebody can do to me that is worse than what I have done to God.
Whoa.
Whoa!
Did you just go
Oh my goodness.
Hold up. Okay, yeah. True.
And so, if he can love me the way that he loves me, then I can't help but love others who have done less
That's
Yeah.
insane.
to me than what I have done to him. So, like, that's the perspective that I carry. And so it's not that I'm a doormat, because I'm not. Like, I tell everybody, like, I'm God's favorite. I really am.
As
Like,
you should.
I know.
As you should.
I love that.
Like, I'm going to make t-shirts one
yes,
day.
know your worth, for real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like, so many things happen, and I'm just like, see? Like, I just needed to pray. Like, that's all I needed to do, you know? And so it's not that by forgiving and by being kind that I'm being taken advantage of. I'm allowing God to use me because I understand his love
Yeah.
to love somebody else who doesn't know what that means.
Wow.
That's good.
Well, expanding on that, like, because I feel like the podcast knows I'm a teacher at Fraser too, so my principal, everyone. I can see that.
with your boss.
I can see that in the way that you lead, for sure. So I would love if you could maybe expand on how you became, or how your path towards being a principal. How did that come to be? Like, what did you go to college for, and how did you end up here at Lower Mainland?
So I wanted to be a vet, like for the longest, but I'm allergic to cats, and that doesn't work if I
Right.
wanted to be a vet. And I have a huge family. Like, my mom has like 14 brothers and sisters or
wow.
something crazy like that. Anyway, and most of them are in Toronto, and when they had babies, like, so there's tons of cousins. So it's, you know, hanging out with my cousins, and like they would fall asleep on me, and there were like 4 of them, and I was like, maybe I could be a teacher. And so when I went to Berman, that's what I did. I managed to squeeze all of that time into 6 years instead of 4. Because one of my teachers was like, you're here for the extracurricular activities. You're not here for the curricular activities. Which, I mean, to be real, like, that's real.
That's real. That's why you go to Bourbon.
Like,
For the extracurriculars.
I went to, like, choir tour. Like, we went to Europe, Hawaii twice, California, like, all the things. I was essay president, yearbook editor. Like, I did too many things. Newspaper editor, because I wanted to,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
like, there's just so much you can get involved in, and so that's what I did. Took rock climbing, because you can. Why not?
Why not?
Right?
Yes, in the gym.
But yeah, so I, in my education classes, I decided that that's what it was going to be. Keith Levitt was like one of those professors that he taught from his heart. Like, you knew that he loved what he did. And he like poured that into us. And so, yeah, I decided that that's what I was going to do. After grad, or while I was at Berman, which was CUC at the time, that's where I met my first husband, and he was from the Bahamas, and his family was associated with a school down there, and so I had an automatic job. Nice. So I went down there, and I taught there for 7 years. And in the Bahamas, like, there's a church. There are churches everywhere. Like, every corner there's a church.
Wow.
like how Tim Hortons is here. Churches everywhere. And so even though the school was a SDA school, it wasn't just SDA kids.
Yeah.
And so but they were all Christian. And so it was nothing like what I knew when I was at home, right? Actually, and because the island was small, like, everyone knew who I was.
Oh, wow.
Like, the day I got there, I came off of the plane and I'm walking to go get groceries, and they're like, oh, you're the new teacher at the school.
Wow.
And I'm like, I got here like an hour ago. And who are you? What in the world is this? Like, that's weird. Like, do I need to hide? I don't know. Anyway, so it was a really small island. But yeah, mostly Christian. And it was interesting because the students would be like, why can't you do this on Saturday? You know, like, why can't you keep the Sabbath, like, at the mall? Like, why don't you do this or whatever, right? And so I had to have an answer for them. Yeah, and so that was interesting, living out my faith that way. Once I left the Bahamas, I went to Korea for a little bit, and I taught there. And again, I taught with the SDA language schools in Korea. Right. And one of the classes you have to teach is a Bible class. And so, and then they encourage you to do like Friday night vespers and stuff like that. But like, it's integrated with language. So like, sometimes you would like teach a song and like, what does this song mean? And let's look at the vocabulary in the song and all that kind of stuff. And so again, like living out your faith, being able to share what you know, what you understand, why you love God. And then after the Bahamas, or after Korea, I came back to Canada, and I was looking for a job here. And I came back in, I don't know, like maybe October or November, and no one is hiring full-time teachers after after the fact. And so I actually I visited a church, and that Sabbath, there was someone who was visiting and was teaching about or preaching about a nonprofit called Changing People's Lives Ministries, and based out of California, but they specifically go to places in the world where you can't talk about God. So they do work in North Korea and like Vietnam, where you can't, I think, like print the Bible, and Laos, like all of these different places. And so I was like, oh man, I was just in Korea and I visited the DMZ. Like, I need to talk to this guy. So like, you know how you, after church, you shake people's hands or whatever, right? So like I go to this guy and I'm like, hi, my name is Leidamae Solijon, and I just came back from Korea and I love what you're doing. How can I help? And so he was like, oh, and he like gave me a job.
Wow.
And so I moved to California for a bit, and I connected with some friends down there from CUC also, because they were starting a school. So then I was working with this guy with a nonprofit, and then I was also teaching English to people who are coming from out of country and trying to upgrade their English to take their exams to get into like Loma Linda kind of type thing. And then from there, I started applying back in Canada. And what was awesome is that my guidance counselor in high school was now the superintendent in Ontario. And so she saw my name and she was like, oh, I have a school for you. And so she called me and I ended up in Windsor. From Windsor, I went to Edmonton. From Edmonton, I got to Fraser. But yeah, that's
quite the journey.
That's
how I got here.
So many places. Wow. What do you think are some, and maybe there aren't any, but what do you think has been maybe like the most significant differences that you've seen in each of the places that you've taught specifically? And how do you think all of your experiences have kind of tied to now where you are serving now? Because were you always serving as principal? Like
no, I was a teacher in the Bahamas, in Korea, as well as in California.
And then when you moved back up here, you were principal?
Moved back up here, I was a teaching principal.
Yeah.
Which just means that like
extra work.
Do extra work. Yeah, do everything.
Yeah. So how do you think like being so well seasoned in teaching, just teaching everywhere, like how do you think that kind of led into your role now as a principal? Yeah.
I think that, oh man, like what's amazing, and again, when you look back, you can see how God has led, right? Like my having been at Berman, like doing essay and yearbook and newspaper helped me, because when I got to the Bahamas, like I needed to be able to do all of those things because I couldn't, right? Like no one in the church, for example, no one at the church that I was at in the Bahamas had ever taken piano lessons before.
Oh, wow.
And like I hated practicing piano, hated practicing piano. And then my mom would always tell me, oh, you're going to regret it. You're going to want to know how to play piano when you get older. And I'm like, no, I won't. Anyway, and so when I got to the Bahamas and no one else had ever taken piano lessons, and then I was like, okay. And I'm like playing the hymns with one hand because that's all I could handle. But they had no music otherwise, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, this is horrible. I should have practiced my piano. My mom was right.
That's right. That's so funny.
But through that, like, then I had to practice. And now I can play a hymn decently if you tell me ahead of time. Anyway, but I can see how many times that has happened, right? Over the course of my life, that if God places an opportunity in your path, like take it, because then he can use that skill that he has given you exposure to be a better qualified person in the future. Because you never know, right? Like how he can use you. But if you take it all in, then he can be like, ooh, this is the perfect place for you to be because you have all of these things because I have given these things to you. And you have taken the opportunity. It's like not bearing those talents, right? Like doubling those talents and tripling those talents or whatever. And so I think that like my journey through all of those places, it has better qualified who I am. And I can see like how, like, for example, when I was in Windsor, it was an amazing time in Windsor because the church that I was at, the youth group, was so active. The University of Windsor is right there, and so there's a bunch of university kids who would go to the church because there's just one church in Windsor at the time. And so these youth were so loud with their faith, and I felt ashamed with my faith. And I was like, man, if like this 16-year-old can like be like, I love Jesus. Wow. And I was like, 20, 30 something. And I'm like, I don't think I could say that out loud so easily. Wow. Right? And so like those youth inspired me to be more authentic, to like speak my faith and speak my truth. You can do it. If they could do it, I could do it for sure. Like, why is that so easy for you and so hard for me? Yeah. And so from there, I think that's where like my world started to meld. Like, because going back to like when you were young, right? Like you have to be a certain way. So I knew exactly what that looked like, and I could be that person. It's just a flip, a switch you flip, right? But to like put yourself and who that idea, like that image of what, you're supposed to be, to actually look at it and be like, is all of that me? This is me, and that's not me. And how does that look? Like, how does this fit? Yeah. Do I need this piece? Do I need that piece? And I think that's where it like solidified when I was in Windsor. And then I actually got to see what happens when you like live that the whole time. Because again, it was just one church, and the church was at the school, or the school was in the church. So I was in the building like 7 days a week, whether I wanted to or not. But those kids became my kids. Like we went to the symphony together. Like I went to their houses. Like they invited me over for birthdays. And it was like just a beautiful community. And I saw what I could be in Christ apart from my parents, apart from like anybody else's thoughts of me. Yeah. Like I was standing on my own.
That's good.
And I could be like, this still works. It still feels like me. Yeah. Because it is. But even then when I was there were still questions, right? And so I had a great foundation in Windsor, and then when I came to Edmonton, I had to live that out. Like Edmonton was a beautiful place also, but there were, like, the school was different. Like there were things that we had to work through as a school community and a church community. But we got through that, and then when I came here, it has all of those things that I have grown through, whether they're problems or difficulties or children teaching me things and like, my growth in my faith and all of that. Yeah, it all just comes together to like the present moment. And I know what's awesome is that I know that it like this isn't even it. Yeah. Right? Like it's still gonna happen. It's still gonna grow. Yeah. It's cool. Like I can't wait to see what God has in store.
It's so beautiful. Wow, that's such a gift to look at life that way, because obviously it's so hard when we do our everyday life and we're like, what if, like, but to know that like we always growing and God has a plan for us, even for like tomorrow, for like the next day. So it's really good. Sorry, I'm just like, sorry, I'm not trying. You're not gonna get emotional on this podcast. It's not gonna happen. You're not gonna see me cry on this podcast. Not this season. But I really appreciate your heart for also like the kids. Not only here, but like it just sounds like you've always had this passion for youth, and I'm not. Yeah, let's not do that right now. But it really is making me see like things in a very different light, and it's so real. Like, we can learn from those kids. Like,
yes.
So much.
Yes.
And you don't have to be at a certain age to like think you have it all down, you know? Mm-mm. So.
No. And it's beautiful. Like, I learn from kids all the time because it's just simple faith. Mm-hmm. And it's, I can't imagine. And so when I think about, like, in the Bible where it says you have to be like a little child, you know, oh man, I could totally be that way. Like, I could totally do that for God. Like, let me be a child for you. I'm totally okay with that, because these kids, man, like, they'll be fighting, but then, like, in the next second, they're totally okay.
Yeah.
And, like, they don't worry about, you know, where, like, what they're gonna eat that day. They're not worried about anything. They're like, they lost a shoe, they're still running, they don't care. You know, and it's beautiful. And if I can live my life like that, because my Father is better than, you know, like, my Heavenly Father is better than anything that anyone else could provide for me. 100%. Like, there's no reason for me to be like, okay, what's in my bank account? Like, how am I gonna get here? Like, I have no gas right now. Honestly, I have no gas in my car. But I was just like, I know that I need to be here. Wow. I'll fill it up later. Fine, whatever. But yeah, like, there's freedom. There's freedom in trusting that God is gonna carry you. Like, He wants peace, and He wants to give us a life more abundant.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Right? Like, that's an abundant life. Like,
I love that. I love that.
I think even more so because, like, if people who are listening don't know already, you guys should probably know. Alex is stepping into a new role as a youth leader, and that's huge because those are such formative years. And I think we know from working with those students that those are such formative years for them to just be learning new things about their faith and about themselves. And really, like, even when I think about my past, and I'm thinking back to those years, and that's really where like I found Jesus and where, like, He became my own. And same with you, like, those are the most important years. So I think it makes sense that you're emotional about it because, like, it's an important time. And it's beautiful that we get to be a part of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So speaking on that too, what we do is not easy.
No.
And I think especially for you, like, you probably have the hardest job because you're having all of the tough conversations. I know we had a conversation earlier today about that.
Who's in trouble now?
But I'm in trouble. But anyways, besides the fact, what we do is not easy. All three of us. You're starting to work with youth. We work with children. Like, it's not an easy job. Like, things change like this all the time. And, you know, that can get really tumultuous. I know, like, I had some trouble this year just because my first year teaching this. Hard times. But seeing as you taught in Bahamas for 7 years, you went overseas to Korea, you went to California, you worked in Windsor, Edmonton. You've been in this profession for a good amount of years. What keeps you staying in this ministry? Like, what about it just like keeps you on fire every single year that you do it?
I love what I do. I love being able to, like, be there for students. Like, I loved being a teacher. I think I still would love to continue doing that. But I also recognize that as I further qualified myself, then I could, like, inspire the next generation of teachers to be awesome teachers, to do what you do. Because I can see it. Like, I've had opportunities, you know, to do other things, right? But the question that I ask is, how satisfied are those people at their work? Because I can see what happens when I do something at school. Like, I can change this, and, like, I can see the difference on that kid's face. I can have a conversation, and I can, like, immediate feedback right there, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone has a problem, I mean, granted, some problems take longer to solve, and we can wrestle with those things. But in the end, I really do see a result, and I love that. Like I don't, and that and never every day is completely different. Like I cannot plan what is going to happen that day at all. Like there's never
It's true.
there's never a day where like this is what I am going to do, because it never happens. So like everything is fluid, and I'm totally okay with that too.
Wow.
Because I mean, I feel like it's just like a microcosm of life, right? Like we can't really tell what's going to happen the next day or the next, and so it's like me exercising my, all right, God, you know what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I can't, there's no way that I could keep track of all of the things.
And it's the trust, right?
Yeah.
It comes
And then
down to
like,
trust.
God's just like, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, right. I need to do that. I should probably write that down, because I don't know if that reminder is going to come back, but I need to do that. And like whatever needs to happen happens. And I know, and I think maybe that's why it needs to happen that way. I know that it's not me. It can't be me, because I know me, and I can't. it's
That's
not
so
me.
real, yeah.
Self-awareness. Love it.
And it's so much easier, again, right? Like just to let God do his thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, like being able to tell parents that they got awesome kids. Because sometimes parents can't see it,
Yeah.
right? Like, they never listen. I'm like, true. But when you're not here and I have to have a conversation, they say please and thank you. That is massive. Like, you need to recognize that you have done something right. So please pat yourself on the back, because you're an amazing parent. And like, because parents need that same encouragement too.
100%, yeah.
And like when a kid doesn't feel like they're up to it or whatever, and you can say, I think you're amazing. Like, I'm your biggest fan. Like, you tell me what you want to do and let me help you do that.
Wow.
Right? Like,
That's
I love that. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. That's true.
Like, that's, yeah. Like, I want to do that always.
No, that's so great. I was telling Esther and Jolly when you were up, because we just had the Fraser Valley Alumni Weekend just happen, and you're speaking on stage, and I was like, girl, you moved me. Now I want to go to Fraser Valley, and I already graduated. I was like, dang, like just the way also the culture at our, like my old school is just moving is so crazy, and just to hear that like you want to do that for those kids is it's beautiful.
Yeah. I love it. It's like it's my jam.
Yeah. She's like, bring it on. That's good. So you also serve here at Church in the Valley. So tell us a little bit of what got you wanting to do that and why you keep coming
Given
here.
all the other hats that you wear and all the other things you do.
How do you,
At CIV, Ryan and I, my husband and I, we serve at meeting grounds. So we're serving at the cafe. And I have also helped out with the depression and anxiety program. Because I figured, like, because you can take a look, right? Like, you just look around and it's a problem. And I have seen it on a major increase with our student population.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is an issue. Like, it's becoming more of an issue, and I needed to qualify myself. So I got involved with that program because I thought that whatever I learned there, I could help apply and like meet the needs of my students and whomever. What else? Yeah, like AOK, single mom stuff. I've helped out with some of that. I don't know. It's like I said, like when I was in Windsor and I saw the effect of someone living 100%, because like life is ministry. It's not like this thing is ministry and this thing is ministering, and it's not. Like your life
that is so good.
is ministry.
Yeah.
And so if you can figure out what that is,
Yeah.
then everything that you're doing in is ministry.
Yeah.
True.
Right?
Exactly.
Very true,
Yeah.
Like, if I can sit down with someone and they can tell me a story, and I can our hearts can be together, that's ministry.
Yeah.
And all I did was sit down and listen.
Yeah.
Right? And that wasn't
that's
church.
beautiful,
That
yeah.
wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I just serve.
Yeah, no, it definitely is those little things too that make a difference. I've had cause we serve pretty often here at CIV, and I've had parents be like, "Thank you for being an example and for serving," and at the back of my mind it's just like, oh, I'm just here doing ministry,
It's just me.
whereas that ministry, that singular ministry that I'm doing actually spreads into multiple different streams of ministry without me even knowing. So that's all God, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that with those simple little ministries quote unquote,
Right.
that we're doing, it's actually making a huger impact. So yeah, that's crazy that you have time to still show up for in all of these things.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question. We love the segue. How do you balance all of it?
Oh.
Because I don't know how to do it still. I'm still learning.
Help me.
I said, principal, help me, please.
Boss.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing it. We're learning. But Alex, right?
No, it's hard.
It's so hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, I just was stressed the other week, and that was just. But yeah.
I know that I'm not doing my best when I don't give God the proper time that I'm supposed to. And to full disclosure, it hasn't been happening the way that it should be happening recently.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, I know if I have to preach or something like that, then I put the time in.
Yeah.
And because I know that I need to, right? Because I'm waiting for a message to download or whatever, right? And so I told God a long time ago that if somebody asks, that I would say yes, right? And maybe I shouldn't say that out loud. Anyway,
There's a lot of people that
mercy.
watch this podcast.
Sorry, you already said it. Can't cut it.
Ooh. Be careful.
And so it forces me, because if it was just on me, then I would choose otherwise. But sometimes God has things prepared for me that I need, and I've seen that in my life. So I'm you know what? Okay, fine, God. I'll let you lead. I have to let you lead, because I know that if I do it all by myself, it turns out to garbage. So let's let you do what you need to do, and let me just ride this wave. And so, yeah, making sure that you put that time in, because otherwise you have no reserves. There's nothing.
Yeah.
But granted, you're supposed to empty that out every day so that you can get filled up again every day, right?
There you go.
Yeah. And so if we put that time in, then God can do with you what he needs to do. Yeah. I've been here in the BC conference serving. I did it when I was at Berman. I was part of the marketing team at Berman.
Okay.
And so I used to come during camp meeting. I did it 2 years in a row. And at that time, they used to pile all the youth into school buses and drive to Vancouver every day to do street ministry.
Oh, wow.
So one day we'd be giving out blueberries and water. Another day there was a concert in the park, and we were just talking to the people.
Oh, wow.
Downtown.
This was during camp meeting?
During camp meeting.
That's crazy.
All of the youth piled into buses, and we drove to downtown, and we did the ministry stuff, and then we piled back into the buses and came back and ate dinner, and then went to the evening meeting.
Wow.
That's what we did every
Whoa.
single day.
Take notes, BC
it was-
conference.
I know, right?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I never remember doing that as a kid.
But it was so much fun.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. But during that time, so my mom passed away from cancer when I was at Berman. And when I was here for camp meeting, she was like kind of wasting away already at that time. And so every day I was all in for the students, like for the kids, and like learning everyone's names and, you know, handing out t-shirts and like being, you know, the thing. And then I would go back to my bed at night and I would cry. Like I cried and I'm like, God, and I, you know, frantically writing. And I would get up the next morning and do it again. And like serve. Go back, cry, write it all down, get it all out, wake up the next morning and serve again. At the end of that camp meeting, I actually left Saturday afternoon because I needed to fly back to Toronto. And from Toronto, I got in a plane with my mom because we were flying to Chattanooga, Atlanta, to go to one of those like lifestyle center places, like the naturopathic healing, whatever. And like she was super sick, like she couldn't even sit up on the plane. But yeah, like that's what was happening at home, that I was serving the whole time. And so like, I don't know, again, I think God just, he prepares you before you do, and then you do, and you keep doing.
Wow.
That's another story though.
I was gonna say, I think we're gonna have you for like here for more than an hour just talking. But
Yeah.
you've lived quite the life. Thank you for sharing that with us, because I don't think there's enough people that know that your guys' principal, like, she's amazing. Like, this is me first time, like, hearing this and sitting down and talking with you. So this is even for me. But the journey that you went through is there anything that you would, like, tell your younger self, any, like, little wisdom or anything? You're just like, hey, girl, like...
We love this question.
Yes.
On the pod.
Yeah.
Yes. I was thinking about this question also. My younger self needed to know that I was God's favorite, that I am God's favorite, that I'll continue to be God's favorite. My younger self needed to know that. Because had I known that, I wouldn't have lived as best of a life as they lived. Because royalty lives a royal life. And I wasn't making royal choices.
Wow.
Because I didn't know. That's what I would tell me. That I'm royalty.
Wow, that's good.
Go Royals.
Yeah.
I saw it coming. I was like, who's going to say it? It's not going to be me. But no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's the title of the podcast.
Go Royals?
No. God's favorite, of course.
Sorry. Go Royals.
Go Royals.
But no, thank you for sharing. Like, I don't want to cry.
I think we're both super grateful. I don't think like this was so last. Sorry, Abraham, if you're watching. But
we had her in the back of my mind, but it was alumni weekend, and we were like, we cannot. She's busy. But do you see the heart on this woman?
No, for real. The way we're talking to Abraham through the camera, no, but we weren't sure if this episode was gonna happen or not. But I think like now having done it, we both needed it. Yeah.
The camera cut in the middle of this too, so
oh, they didn't need to know that.
God, no, but I'm telling them.
Yeah, Satan was fighting us.
That's what I'm saying.
Satan was fighting us in this episode, but we made it. Tears and alls, but yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Someone out there needed to hear your story.
I think it was me, actually. It was me.
It was Alex.
It was me.
All right, Alex, close us off.
But thank you again for sitting here with us, and thank you guys for listening. Yeah, I know there's so much more other stories that we have to share from our CIV family. So if it's you, you know where to find us. Send us a text, DM us. But don't forget to check out the other episodes and stay updated. And here we like to say and end it off. Don't forget to
Love God.
love people.
And serve the world.
So we'll see you guys.
See you guys.
Bye.